Hi, I'm Scott Chacon. I'm the CEO of GitButler, and today we're going to do some stacked branches. So I'm going to show you how to stack branches with the GitButler tooling. If you haven't used stack branches or stack diffs, it's a way of sort of creating reviewable branches where one needs to be merged before the other one. For example, there can be some dependency. You can have some back-end change and then some front-end change that depends on it, and they need to be merged sort of in that order. GitButler can both do parallel branches and stacked branches very, very well, or you can even have parallel stacked branches. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. Here, I have some changes that I've made to the application that I have. Actually, if you want to see sort of what it looks like, it's just a little chat app. Yeah. And I've made two changes, and so what I want to do is make them sort of stacked on top of each other. The first thing that I want to do is I'm going to create a new branch, which you can do with but branch new. If you just do it like this, it will just create sort of, it'll come up with a branch name for you. And so you can see sort of what that branch is. Now I have this new branch, SC branch 2. I can stage stuff to it, so I can do but stage, or I can do rub, which is another way of sort of combining things. But let's go ahead and use stage here. And I can either do the path or I can do the shorthand here. So I'm going to use, I'm going to do this one. Actually, let's do the UI one first. UR to SC, which is this SC branch. So I'm using these short codes on the side here. And now I can see that this is staged to this, and so I can commit it. If you run but commit -O, that means only the stuff that's staged to it. So I'm going to go ahead and commit to SC branch 2 here. If you don't have a default editor, we have this sort of built-in Ratatouille-based editor that you can write commit messages or branch names or things like that in. But you can also set your editor with but config. So maybe we can do that next. Now we have this commit here. And if you do status -F, you can see what files are in that commit. So I've committed this UI change here. Now, let's say that we could do a parallel branch and we could add these, but let's say that there's some dependency here. These ones really, the changes that I made in these files depend on whatever change I made in this file. And so I need to create a stack branch that has this dependency. So if I say but branch new again, but I say anchor it to SC, now I can see I created a new branch, and you can see this sort of stacking dependency here. And I can commit to that. Okay, so now we have two commits, one in each branch. Now the other thing I could do is split this up. I don't have to only have one commit in each branch in a stack. I can split by creating an empty commit. So now I have this empty commit with no commit message in here. I have these two files, so I want to move this one. And I'm going to move it into this commit. Yeah. And now I can see that this file is in this commit, this file is in this commit. And so that's kind of a way of splitting up commits, right? It's sort of moving files or hunks around. I can also run diff on this one, so I can see sort of, what's the difference that's in this one particularly. And reword it, so I can add a commit message after the fact. And now I have two commits in the global one that's stacked on the one commit in the other one. So now the next thing that we're going to do is create a pull request. GitButler has this PR command, and you can run PR. I can open it for just the bottom one, or I can open it for both of them if I want to. So I'm going to go ahead and open commits on both. So now it opens up my editor again and says, what do you want the PR description to be? So I can say essentially everything in this is cut out of the PR, but it gives you some instructions on kind of how to do this. So I can say add colors to the username. That's the title of the PR. Description for the PR goes here. And it'll go ahead and create a PR for that. And then this is the second one that's stacked. Global / command on top. And now I have these two URLs. And so I can go ahead and look at either of them. So let's look at the second one. You can see this is stacked on top. That's the description. Global / command, that's the title of the PR. And these are stacked branches. So now the interesting thing is, what if I get some review and I want to update one of these stacks, right? This is something that is a little bit difficult to do, I think, in Git or with other stack diff sort of commands. So we're going to show how to modify that pretty easily. So let's say I go ahead and make another change to this. If we open up this file and we want to make some change, change this function name, whatever. All right, now if we run this, two things. I can see that the file's been modified the way that I modify it. And I can also see that it's locked to a specific commit. So it's locked to this commit because I'm making some changes that were introduced in this commit. So there's a couple different things I can do. I can run but rub on this one, and I can rub it into this one, which will essentially amend it. I can run amend, which is an alias for rub. So I can do the same thing. You are CF, right? That'll just sort of amend this one. And you can see that these have all changed because it's rebased everything on top of it, right? So since I changed this commit, I have to change these commits as well. But let's undo that. So I can restore back to where I was before. And I kind of undid the amend. Let's change one of these other ones. Let's say I also wanted to change here. Let's go into this file and just add a comment maybe. All right, so now I have two changes. This one is probably going to need to go into this, but it doesn't necessarily have to because this one, it's not locked. It's not editing a hunk that was introduced in this other one. This one is editing a hunk that was introduced in this one, but I can sort of rub one and the other or amend one and then the other. I can also run a command called absorb. So if I run absorb, what it's going to do is it says I found these ones, they're locked to this commit, so I went ahead and absorbed them into that one. The last commit in the primary lane is my best guess, right? And so it goes ahead and sort of amends them. So if I run this again, I can see that this one has been changed and this one has been changed. This is a much easier way of doing it than sort of checking out one and modifying the file and then restacking, or you can just go ahead and make whatever changes you want and then run absorb and it'll absorb it, or amend them manually, sort of one hunk at a time or one file at a time. So now, if we run push, we can choose what do we want to push. We're going to push to both of them, and it will force push up to the various PRs and update the PRs so that we have those changes absorbed. So if we look now at sort of, either of these, let's go ahead and go back to this one. You can see that there was a push here, and we've absorbed those changes. So if we look at that, we see both this comment, right, because we added that, and then the previous changes that were in that file. We can also see this in GitButler as well, in the GUI. So we happen to do this on the command line and actually do all of these commands on the command line. We can also do it in the GUI, and we'll see exactly the same thing, right? So now these ones are sort of all updated. We have links to the PRs the same exact way that we have links to the PRs in the command line. It doesn't really matter which way you do this. The other nice thing about this is that because the command line has sort of all of these tools like --JSON, so you can run, but branch new JSON, right? And it gives you sort of JSON output to that, right? Or status. So because all of this stuff is available in JSON, that means your agents can do it too. So your agents can stack branches, your agents can absorb changes automatically if you give it sort of instructions to do that. The way that you do that is through the skill command. So you can say skill install, and you can install sort of agent-based skills. So Claude Code, Open Code, Copilot Cursor, whatever. And now your agents can go ahead and stack branches, can amend branches, can absorb changes from future work. So all of this stacking stuff is also fully controllable through the CLI and looks exactly the same, as I said, in the GUI. So if you're doing stuff in the CLI or if your agent's doing stuff, you'll see it reflected in the GUI, and you can go in and sort of manually change stuff. Like one of the nice things, that you can do in the GUI, for example, is sort of move hunks around and absorb them or squash them down into previous commits. So some of these things are easier to do in the GUI, but again, it doesn't really matter. Do it in the GUI, do it in the command line. It ends up modifying the same things. That is stacking branches with GitButler, both with the GUI and with CLI. If you like stacked diffs, if you like stacked review, go ahead and try us out as a great way of being able to do that both programmatically or with an agent or with our drag and drop interface. Enjoy.